Welcome to Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm New York State Assemblyman Keith L.T. Wright, and I represent New York State's 70th Assembly District, which includes parts of Harlem, Central Harlem, and West Harlem. Affordable housing is on the mind of every New Yorker, and today I want to focus on the issue of how tenants can advocate for themselves at the state level, local level. And joining me today to talk about these issues and more are Randrita Ward Evans, the president of the Riverton Tenants Association, and certainly my partner in a recent lawsuit that we pursued against our landlord. And we also have Elcia Vasquez, the executive director of Palante Harlem. Thank you both for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Randrita, why don't we start with you? In the intro, I talked about how you and I were partners in a lawsuit concerning the Riverton development, which is located in Central Harlem, 135th Street, between 135th Street and 5th and Madison Avenues to 138th Street, development of 1,300 units of rent-stabilized apartments, which is no longer that number. But you were the tenant leader during that time, and why don't you tell the audience about the lawsuit that you and I both pursued?
Well, the lawsuit was an effective process. Whenever you're elected, I am the former president of the Riverton Tenants Association, and I was at that time the president, and with the assemblyman who lives in the Riverton, we had a legal clinic in March of 2014 in which Elsie participated. And at that time, the assemblyman put together a group of lawyers to assist our tenants. We always knew we had a problem with our MCIs.
Why don't you tell what MCIs stand for?
Well, the MCIs primarily, I will give you an example. Whenever the owners of a building, in their quotes, improve the development, benches, elevators, and et cetera, because of our circumstances as tenants, that fee is now not the owner's fee, but it's the tenant's fee.
The tenants have to pay for these things.
Exactly, and they're supposed to divide it, and so much per month. It could be from $100, it could be $25 per month.
Right.
But we had some tenants who had been there a long time. Some tenants, it wasn't even divided equally. Some tenants that say they should have been paying $75 or $35 per room. For this, they were being charged $150 to $75 per month. So what occurred is we knew we had some MCIs. Some of the MCIs should have stopped at a certain period,
Right.
which they did not stop at that period. Let's say there was a 2-year period in which you were supposed to pay the MCIs. They went into 2.5 years. Then you double that amount. So what occurred was we had tenants paying $200 and some per month. Some tenants were paying $70 per month. We knew that we had a problem, but what occurred was at that legal clinic, we realized we needed our tenants to go and actually get their ledgers. And once they get their ledgers, we had an opportunity to go tenant by tenant.
The ledgers are showing what they've paid, I guess, throughout the year or 2 years. Yeah.
1 or 2 years.
1 or 2 years.
So they kept a copy. We had a copy that we went through with your office and our lawyers. And then that is when we saw that our tenants were paying more than they should, some twice as much, some 3 times as much. And we looked at the amount and we realized that Compass Rock and CW were collecting between $50,000 to $75,000 more than they should have been collecting per month.
Per month?
Per month. So at that time, we sat down with your staff, Janine Johnson, who is your chief of staff, and with Kathleen, and they contacted you, and because you were very upset anyway, because you kept saying something's wrong with my rent. This is
well,
not.
With my rent, I mean,
Yes.
I saw that I was being charged not once, not twice, but 3 times. I was paying for one thing 3 times per month.
per month.
Right.
So we sat down, we evaluated our circumstances. We spoke to a law firm. We spoke to several law firms. And then at one point we realized that Jeff Roth, who you recommended, was the best lawyer for us. So then we had several meetings with our tenants, and it was a process. It was a process. What occurred was that we had to first go to our tenants at our meetings and let them know actually what was going on. So it took us about 3 months through that process of letting them know what was going on, how we want them to go get their ledgers, how we read their ledgers, hiring a law firm. Then we actually hired a consultant. They had their lawyers, they had their consultants. And I would actually say something that would normally take us maybe a year to 2 years took us 6 months. So the process, and then we won the suit because, well, I'm gonna say this.
But we didn't actually go to court.
No,
we didn't actually go. We filed the law. Well, what I remember was in August of 2014. It was in August of 2014. We had a press conference.
Right.
That we couldn't get anybody to show up to.
But the New York Times showed up.
The New York Times showed up, and I'm even talking about tenants. And because affordable housing is the biggest issue that's facing every New Yorker. I mean, I don't care where I go, whether it's Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island. Everybody is talking about affordable housing. This guy that ran for mayor or governor, Jimmy McMillan, I mean, he has the phrase, the rent's too damn high.
Right.
And he's actually right. He's actually right. The landlords have been getting away with murder. But I was being charged 3 times for the same MCI when we were going over my ledger, and MCI stands for Major Capital Improvement. When I was going through my ledger, I said, if they can do this to me,
Chair of the Housing Committee.
Chair of the Housing Committee for the New York State Assembly, God only knows who else they're doing these things
And
to.
we actually had tenants who have been living there 50 years
Yes.
who actually left.
Yes.
Wow.
We could not talk them in because they were so frustrated. And we worked with them and we did our best, but they actually left because they could no longer pay $200 to $300 per month
Extra.
extra. So, but you know, a part of your job as a president of Tenants Association is to provide and prevent.
Sure.
And we're there. We have 4 generations. We have people who are there with 4 generations. So you have a great grandmother, a grandmother. You have, and so this were households of people who collectively living and working with each other and helping each other, who are effectively paying $900 to $1,000 more, trying to educate their families.
Sure.
And then when you speak to the owners, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
What the stat that got me, though, Rendrita, was that this is a development, and you mentioned the name Compass Rock and CW Capital. They are also the owners of Stuyvesant Town down in the east side. And the stat that got me was that we've had 1,300 apartments approximately in the Riverton development, and those 1,300 apartments were basically all rent stabilized, rent controlled. And now, because of gentrification and I would say tenant harassment, not necessarily by CW Capital, but throughout other landlords that we've had, we only have 777 apartments that are rent stabilized. So we've lost almost half of the rent stabilized apartments that have gone from rent stabilization to market rate.
But I also believe a part of the process, not just with CW Cap, and I'm sure that Elsie could talk about this better than I can, but I think the part of the process is when you look at the environment that we're living in now, that is their mindset to make it market value. And because we know this and we're not moving, we had to fight. We had no choice but to fight. When you hear about someone who's charging you from $75 to $300 per month, that is not something that they are not aware of. That is no secret. That have to be something that is planned in the process of trying to get rid of you. So we fought not just because of the inequity, financial inequity, but we also fought for the fact that we've been there 50, 60 years. Our families moved in there. We live in a community that we love. And we want to stay there. We want to work with management. It's not that we don't want to work with management, but the law is the law. And because you're living in there as the assemblyman for your district, and not only that, but you're the chair of the housing committee, my attitude, was actually when I looked at the ledgers, and mine included, I said, how blatant can you be? How mistrusting can you be?
Well, see, I never thought it was intentional on their part because CW Capital is a financial concern. They're not really a real estate concern, but it might have been intentional on their part to get the money, but I just don't think they've never really learned how to manage real estate.
But
in some ways.
I agree and I disagree because when you start collecting that kind of money,
Well, the
each
money gets good to you. The money gets good to you. Well, tell our audience, before I get to Elsia, tell our audience, we sued them for $10 million. And we never went to court.
No.
Because they didn't want to go to court.
No.
And one of the first things I learned in law school was that when you don't have the facts on your side, you argue the law. When you don't have the law on your side, you argue the facts. And we know that since they're a financial concern, their interest mainly is to sell the property. And you can't really sell a property when you have when you're encumbered by lawsuits. And so we sued them for $10 million, and I think we settled for $2.5 million.
2.5.
So each tenant basically got a month or two.
They received $985,
right.
which is 1 month's rent.
1
for
month's
some.
rent for the month.
Plus, for 2 years, $35 per month for the
It sounds like a big victory to you and me, just for that our own little piece of the world up there.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm going to go back and say this too, and I said this to Elsie as well. When we worked with CW Capital, and I felt like we worked with them.
I did too.
Through this process.
No question.
And CW and Compass Rock, there was never an attitude. We always sat in front of each other. We always met with each other, with their lawyers. They had a law firm. We had Jeff Roth. We had one consultant. They maybe had 10 or 15 consultants.
At least.
And it was with your staff. And we never had, there was never, in fact, there was conversation. It was never that way. It was always a professional respect for each other.
Sure.
And I think because of the respect that we had for each other with CW and Compass Rock, although we were suing them, they understood it. I always felt like it was a process that would not take that long because of the relationship and the respect that they had for you and they had for their tenants. So I would just want to make it known that this was never a relationship.
It was not acrimonious.
It was never that way.
Never.
And I do believe because we had a respect for each other, that we were able to facilitate this even in a shorter period of time than normal, because I believe, I might be speaking out of cuff, but I believe that Stuyvesant was with months and months and years with the same company.
Absolutely.
When it took us maybe 6 months.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
The most.
I agree. Well, you're certainly your efforts certainly will be staying with us in the community for years to come.
I love my community.
And we love it. So, speaking of a person that loves their community, Elsia Vasquez.
Hello.
From Palante, one of my heroes in the housing movement, a woman that has worked most of the time without any money because she's so passionate about housing and helping neighborhoods to remain stabilized. Elsia, tell us a little bit about what Palante does.
Well, Palante first means move forward, means pay it forward. It is also an acronym. It stands for People Against Landlord Abuse and Tenant Exploitation. And like you said, we love this community. I love my community. I am from Harlem. In fact, when the airplane from the Dominican Republic landed in the U.S. on that September day, it pretty much put me over here in Harlem, and I love my community. Palante was formed in 2000 and officially in 2006, and with your help, Assembly Member, we were able to take our landlord to task. At that time, we were just a simple tenants association. But we found and we saw the tremendous gap that existed in our community. We, with your help, of course, we organized all of the buildings belonging to Elon Zinner. You might remember that name.
Where were those buildings located?
The buildings are 225 West 146th Street, 235 West 146th Street, and 301 West 141st Street.
So just started as a mere tenant organization.
That's right. A group of angry tenants. Because,
Angry tenants.
We did not have heat. We had cascading leaks. We had illegal rents. And we had no super in any of the buildings.
I remember those buildings.
Yeah.
They were in bad shape.
And those conditions were deplorable. So our tenants association, we decided to
And
conduct a rent strike.
a lot of immigrant
That's
families
right.
as well. That's
Actually,
right.
we had a very diverse group. We had senior citizens,
Blacks.
black senior citizens,
Sure.
Jamaican senior citizens.
Sure.
We had a lot of undocumented tenants,
Sure.
as well as senior citizens and U.S. citizens.
Sure.
So it was a really good mix of people of different age groups. And we are the first tenant association that actually took its landlord to court and demanded for the Article 7A. And it had been 8
Explain
years.
what Article 7A is.
Article 7A is when you fire your landlord through the courts. You tell the courts, I do not want this landlord. He doesn't have the money to make any repairs. And we want the city to make the repairs because at the end of the day, someone is responsible
Sure.
for our living conditions. We were angry, as I said from the beginning, because a lot of our senior citizens ended up being rushed to the hospital because of the lack of heat. And we never see them come back. So we initiated our housing court battle, both in housing court and state Supreme Court in November of 2006. And in December of the following year, all of the buildings were removed from management of the landlord, and the city stepped in. They invested a little bit over $2 million in the rehabilitation of the property. And during that time, the word got out on the block of what these groups, what Palante was doing. At that time, we were just a tenants association.
But you weren't Palante then.
We weren't
You
Palante
not
then, right. We was
Because I
just-
need you to start fast forwarding
That's
to
right.
how you got to Palante now.
Right. In fact, the reason why we're named Palante is because whenever we had a roadblock, there was a tenant in the building, the tenants association, that she says, no, we're going to move Palante. I don't care. We're going to continue pushing until we get it. And sure enough, we did. We, in December of 2007, all buildings were removed and the city came in and rehabilitated the property. And
So when did you become Palante?
in 2009. In 2009, we incorporated. We submitted our papers in 2008. And in 2009, we became a not-for-profit organization.
So what kind of work do you do now as Palante?
Palante is a boutique. We provide housing service specifically in all areas of housing, but we just focus on
All
housing.
areas of
All
housing.
areas of housing, but just housing. So
As an
if you-
advocacy organization
as an
for
advocacy,
tenants?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We assist tenants in organizing. We have a program
Organizing, sure.
called TOLD, is Tenant Leadership, Tenant Organizing and Leadership
Very
Development.
important, very important.
We also have a legal program, legal and mediation services.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we have attorneys, private attorneys that come to our office on a weekly basis on Thursdays, and they provide a legal clinic, one-on-one to any tenant that comes to our
But there are
office.
lines around the block.
Yes, but we do have appointments. So but Thursdays are really long nights at Palante. And then the other program that we have is also called Palante Stand and Deliver, which is when we take in our youth and we really try to spike greatness in them. And they do a lot of community organizing. They also learn
Young
how to work
people?
young people.
Young people?
Yeah, we get them as young as 15.
Really? And
In
they learn
fact,
tenant organizing?
Everything. In fact, our new website, we just launched our new website at www.palanteharlem.org. And a 15-year-old actually put that together. It's one of
Really?
our Palante Stand and Deliver
One of the
kids.
things I have found is that in moving around from different buildings and different tenants or organizations, I noticed that a lot of tenants are even scared,
Yes.
afraid, they're apprehensive in trying to organize as tenants because they're so afraid, especially in our immigrant communities, where they're scared because they think they may get kicked out of their apartments. So, I mean, I'm sure you see the
What
same
I tell
thing.
people is that you either fight now or fight later. But if you're planning to stay, not just in Harlem, in New York, you're going to have a fight. And it's better to pick the fight and pick the area, the ring where you're going to have it, and how many rounds you're going to go. In other words, landlords want to make money. It's real estate. Real estate is a business. But we also obviously don't want to be kicked out of our community. So it is really important that tenants organize. It is really important that tenants do their due diligence. They have to treat their apartment as if they purchased a home. In other words, don't just sign a lease. Have somebody look it over for you. We found also that a lot of tenants are being overcharged for ridiculous things.
Like we were being overcharged in the Riverton, what Randrita was talking about.
That's right.
So this is a systematic sort of going on.
But a lot of it is happening, though, because the tenants are not taking action.
Not taking notice.
Right. They're just paying their rents, are really busy, going to work, making the rent blindly. Exactly.
My grandmother told me a long time ago that nobody does your job better than you. I never knew what that meant, but it means that you yourself have to be proactive and you have to take care of your business. So you can't just blindly pay your rent. You have to investigate, agitate, and always question authority.
I'll tell you a story. Ramon Hernandez, he's in your district. He got a lot of publicity lately, and the reason why he did is because we helped him complete an application to submit to DHCR, which is the agency that oversees the rent laws. And the landlord owes Ramon $112,000.
Really?
Yeah. And the way that came down, and he's in the apartment. Ramon was complaining about repairs, and for years, asking the landlord, can you please make these repairs? The landlord was not making the repairs. When he took on the apartment, he was paying $1,300. And then he talked to his neighbor. And something as simple as talking to your neighbor, how far does this go? So his neighbor told him that she's coming to our office and that he should also come and visit and see, so we could force the landlord to make the repairs. And as part of our general intake, we obviously asked for people to bring their leases, and we identified that the legal rent to his apartment was $350.
Rather than
at that time he was paying, I think it's $1,800.
So something as simple as talking to your neighbors.
That's
so,
right.
Which is just talking to your neighbors, and then maybe that could go on to becoming tenant organizing to a certain extent.
That's right.
We only have 5 minutes to go, but there's so many stories. So I wanted our listening audience to really know the great work that you, Randrita, that we have done, but it was really you, Randrita. It was really you, Randrita, at the Riverton, and what people can do just as a regular person. You've never been a tenant advocate. You never got into this line of work.
Process.
Yeah, you never, but you just took
I'm
action.
passionate about my community that I love.
And you took action where you live. Where you live. And if everyone takes a little bit of action where they live, as Elsia says, if people can just talk to their neighbors, talk to their friends, and find out what's going on, then we can change the course of a community. Because I will tell you that, and it's not just Harlem, it's all over the city of New York. We all have to take some action in terms of our own little pieces of the world, because quite frankly, I think people are being overrun right now. I always say that people are not moving to gentrifying communities because they want to be there. It's just, they're broken. They're getting eased out of where they lived, and they're getting thrown out of where they live all over the place. So any outgoing comments you want to make, Randrita?
I would just like to thank you for all the political actions that you're doing in Albany now. We didn't even touch on that.
We didn't talk about the bill, the housing bill.
It's excellent work.
Yeah, which is an excellent work. And I'm just so proud of you and being a part of the community, and not only helping us, but helping the state with this process.
Well, thank you very much. You're going to make me blush. Elsia, any outgoing comments?
Well, we want to invite the audience to our housing conference that we're having this year.
When is that? When is that?
June 12th and the June 13th.
June 12th.
Yes.
Housing conference.
That's
I think
right.
everyone should be there.
Everyone. If you're a renter or homeowner, we're going to have this conference at the Harlem office, State Office Building, located at 163 West 125th Street. And it's an all-day conference, both Friday and Saturday. And
Friday and Saturday.
That's right.
And what's going to be discussed at this conference?
We're all themes, all topics
everything
in housing.
Having to do with housing.
Everything. So if you're a NYCHA tenant, if you...
NYCHA included, okay,
NYCHA included. If you're a rent-stabilized tenant, if you live in an AECP or TIL building, these are city-owned buildings, or if you are a shareholder in the low-income HDFCs in our community, we encourage everyone to participate. They should also register. because we're looking at having over 1,000 people come to this
Doesn't
event.
matter where you live.
That's right, all over New York City. We represent everyone, and we love to help our people. And they can visit,
Is
and
this
they
the
can
first
register.
conference? This is the first conference you're having? You've
No,
had
we
other
should do it every year.
You do it every year?
Every year, yeah. Last year, our conference focused on assisting. We did it with you, actually, with
Yeah.
TIL and ANCP tenants. And one of the biggest issues that they had then was that they didn't have any succession rights. And with your
Succession
help,
rights is
right,
a big thing.
it's huge. That's how we keep our community. So,
So
with your
that's
help, we
June
changed
when?
June 12th and 13th
Where?
at the Harlem State Office Building. It's
Which is located?
at 163 West 125th Street, and the conference will take place on the 8th floor.
And what time is it?
It starts at 8 a.m.
8 a.m.?
8 a.m. and it would end at
Okay.
4. And there are a total of 32 breakout sessions, as well as 2 high-level panel discussions, which will take place during the lunch, and lunch is being provided.
Lunch will be provided.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's good information, and I thank both of you for being here. I think we've gotten some wonderful information, excuse me, to our audience, and I'm sure Elsia, do you have a contact number you want to list?
Yes, our phone number, anyone needing help can call us.
Or website or something?
They can contact us at 212-491-2541, or they can email us at palanteharlem.org. Our website is www.palanteharlem.org, and we invite everyone to come to our brand new website that has a lot of tenant resources and tools, and also, of course, register for this conference. It's all about education and knowledge. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We will not give Randrita's address because she's just a private citizen. And as a tenant leader, she's used to people come knocking on her door. So I want to thank both of you for being here today and for the fascinating discussion. If you'd like to discuss this or any other issue with me, and I invite you to contact me in my district office at area code 212-866-5809. I'm New York State Assemblyman Keith L.T. Wright. Thank you for watching. Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network.